Welcome back to the Snap Count on Big Play Sports Network, presented by FanDuel. I am your host, Trai, and this is your quarterback in mind, Mr. Charlie Batch. Sir, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
It's been good, man. 8 days since our season ended, and I got to say, look, as much as I hate the way our season ended, it is something to be said about going into a weekend and just watching football without the stressors of your team. And we had a very stressful season this year, right? Every week felt like something was going to happen wrong. And when we had the confidence that everything was going right, stuff went wrong. But we had a relaxing weekend of football, Charlie, or so I thought. CB, you live in a nice neighborhood, right? I thought you lived on these safe streets in Pittsburgh, PA, but you still managed to get some strays thrown your way over the weekend, specifically in regards to this CJ Stroud and the Houston versus the Patriots game. How did that happen, CB? How you trying to have a good weekend and watch some football stress-free for the first time all year, and you still getting shots thrown your way? What is going on?
First of all, I was minding my own business. I'm sitting on the couch. I'm watching the game. I'm looking out. Let me just go on Twitter, see what we got going on. And all of a sudden, a notification blowing up. I'm like, what we got going on here? And sure enough, I went on there, and obviously people were watching that Houston game, and somebody made a comment, and they said CJ Stroud is Charlie Batch with Bob Marley braids.
First of all, man, how you gonna come at my quarterback like this? I know my quarterback ain't throwing no 4 interceptions in one half, right? He didn't have no 8 turnovers in one postseason. Don't be coming at my quarterback like that. But hey, I gotta say, CB with dreads, they don't look half bad, brother.
Hey, I'm sitting there saying, how did I get involved? Why do I get the strays thrown my way? And sure enough, somebody went on there and they asked Grok, they said, hey, create Charlie with Bob Marley braids. And that is the image that came up. And sure enough, everybody started to run with it. I mean, even Pat McAfee retweeted it. I said, oh, here we go. So, of course, when you see everybody starting to comment on that, and it's still blowing up right now because people are still waking up and they're checking their messages. And people are just like, wow, I can't believe Charlie got strays thrown his way, but it was all in good fun, man. Like I said, the one guy, as we were talking back and forth, I was perfectly fine with it. A lot of other people thought that he was throwing strays and I was getting upset. I thought it was hilarious. I saw that picture and I said, at least I know now, if I ever decided to continue to grow my hair out and get it to braid status, at least I know what it's going to look like. And that guy, he doesn't look half bad.
You don't look, brother, a bumper clock, man. You could have been the extra in belly or looking like that, man. That is fun, man.
But beautiful tweet, man. All in fun, man. Much love. Hey, man, continue to send that. But that's what happened. Hey, I'm on Twitter. I'm active, and you're talking directly to me. So it was all in good fun, man. No hard feelings this way.
Oh yeah, man. It's all in good fun. But hey, it wasn't fun for CJ Stroud and the rest of those boys in Houston after they whooped up on us. They went up to the Patriots, and I got to tell you, that Houston defense did all they could, but CJ, he had a rough one, and he's going to have some things to answer for in this offseason, and we'll get to that and more as they play the divisional playoff games this weekend. The results are in, and we have a conference championship being hosted by Denver. New England's going up to Denver, and then we have Seattle Seahawks hosting the LA Rams. So fun conference championship action happening next weekend. We won't be involved. We will be in search of a coach, right, CB? For the first time in a long time, the Steelers are embarking on a new era in Steelers football. And in our just history, in our brief time in Pittsburgh, when you look at the whole history of the Steelers, only 3 coaches since 1969, this is going to be a new and groundbreaking territory for us. Like going back to the facility, Coach Tomlin not being there, all the staff not being there, it really is going to look different for us and the rest of Steeler Nation in 2026.
It really is. And obviously, this is new for everybody, but you've been around the league. And obviously, I was in Detroit prior to coming to Pittsburgh. So you see many coaches changes that happen up there. And obviously, being involved with it in 2006 and seeing how that went from Coach Cowher to Coach Tomlin. This is new for everybody around here. And, yes, a lot of things have happened. I was in shock, especially when we talked about it last week, because of the timing of it. I didn't expect it to happen that quickly. I'm thinking maybe there's some time, think about it, sleep on it, and then a decision is made later on. And ultimately, that didn't happen. But of course, the decision was made. It went into the weekend. But the one thing I will push back on, Trai, is the fact of when you're like, it was a quiet weekend for Steelers Nation. Here's the one thing that I don't want the fan base to now get complacent with: not playing meaningful football in January.
Hmm.
That is something that Steelers Nation was created because people were arrogant. They expect to win the division. They expect to be in the playoffs and have that AFC championship game home, and they expect to be in the Super Bowl. And that hasn't happened since 2010. Well, really 2008, the last time we won it, but 2010 at least in the Super Bowl. And here we are 15 years later, not having that opportunity. So I'm hoping that changes, and ultimately that change happens with the new head coach that is ultimately going to get hired here. But because it happened so late in the Steelers in the playoffs, they are essentially a week behind everybody else when it comes to now their head coaching search. And this is going to be interesting to see exactly what the Rooney family is going to do. And this is going to be one that the main hire that is going to be the most critical hire for Omar Khan. And I understand it's the Rooney family, but Omar has to work directly with this head coach, and they have to align to make sure that that vision is ultimately hoisting that Lombardi trophy. So this is going to be a critical time. Rooney's are involved. You don't question it. Like you mentioned, three coaches since 1969. You hope that they get it right, and whoever they hire will be here 10 plus years.
Yeah, the whoever is a new coach has their work cut out for them. This is this front office first opportunity to direct the leadership of this team moving forward. And so we got a bunch to get into. We got that. There's plenty of intriguing head coaching candidates out there. And once this new coach get in, we have a lot of stuff that are big question marks for the Steelers moving forward as far as personnel. What is the plan moving forward? For the Steelers from an offensive perspective, from a defensive perspective, from a special teams perspective. We'll get into that and more with these Steel City headlines coming up. Steel City headlines are brought to you by Smart Choice Windows. Right now at Smart Choice Windows, you can get 50% off all windows during our limited time promotion. Plus, take advantage of their special financing with no money down and no interest until 2027. Looking to upgrade your whole exterior? Smart Choice Windows is also offering $1,500 off siding for your entire home and $500 off entry door installation to boost your curb appeal. And remember that every project starts with a free, no pressure estimate. So give them a call at 844-GET-SMART or visit smartchoicewindows.com and make sure to ask about the big play bonus to get additional 10% off all promotions. 3 coaches since 1969, CB. And not just 3 any old just coaches off the couch. We have 3 Hall of Fame coaches since 1969. Chuck Noll's already in. Coach Cowher's already in. You got to believe Coach Tomlin is going to be first ballot or shortly thereafter. And so this next coach that's going to be in this building is taking on a lot of history with this franchise, a lot of nostalgia, and with the task of getting some of that, you know, getting that old thing back, for lack of a better term, for the Steelers, getting back to what the Steelers Nation is used to seeing on the football field. They haven't had that. Now, granted, they've had winning seasons. It's been well documented. Have not had a losing season under Coach Tomlin. So that spans the 19 years. And it goes back even further there. I think their last losing season was 2003, the year before Ben Roethlisberger got in town. And so this coach has a lot of pressure on their back. And there are some intriguing candidates out there. When you look at the list of guys, you got the Robert Saleh out there in San Fran, who managed to do a great job with a patchwork defense after losing Nick Bosa and Fred Warner. You got Clint Kubiak, who did great things in Seattle. Anthony Weaver, a dark horse in Miami, who's been in Baltimore, knows AFC North football. Brian Flores, who was here just a short year or two ago and did a great job with the linebacking core while he was here, has a history with Pittsburgh, as does Mike McCarthy and Chris Shula, all with Steeler roots. And that's just a short list. There's plenty more out there that are intriguing. The DC from Jacksonville, the DC from the Broncos, Vance Joseph. And so when you look at these candidates, CB, the Steelers, I don't think are going to go the traditional route. They never have, right? Coach Cowher was a special teams coach in Kansas City. Coach Tomlin, first year as a DC with the Minnesota Vikings, hadn't really made his name as a defensive coordinator yet. And then before that, Chuck Noll, defensive coordinator for, I believe, the Colts in 1968, prior to his tenure in Pittsburgh. And so it's not what you would think is your traditional hot candidate that the Steelers go after. They go after somebody under the radar that truly fits who they think fits the culture of Steelers football. And so what do you think when you look at those candidates, when you look at the rest of the NFL, CB, how do you think the Pittsburgh will go about this search? Do you think it's going to be more personality over scheme? They got to strike a healthy balance, of course, but who do you think Art Rooney and Omar Khan are going to target as their next head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Looking at this list, you would like to think that Brian Flores is in pole position. And I say that because he spent time around the Rooney family as he was here for a season as the linebacker coach. Now, what does the interview process look like? Ultimately, those are the ones that are going to have to now woo over the Rooney family and Omar as it relates to what the interview process looked like. As I'm putting my crystal ball onto this, the thing that I hesitate with, I don't necessarily think that the Steelers will now bring on a coach who now is in his second term from a coaching perspective. If they
Mhm.
failed, I don't know if that happens.
A retread,
And the
right?
reason why I say that, because when you have an experienced coach that's coming in, obviously that salary is going to be a lot higher than what you would have if someone new at the position. So that's why when I look at these other guys that are kind of now slowly but surely showing up on the radar, no head coaching experience, I think that is an advantage to them because when you go to reset the coach's salary, now you're not starting at that $20 million that you started with John Harbaugh up there in New York. That's number one. Number two, what does the power structure look like? If you have already been a head coach, you know what to look for. And that power struggle is going to happen between head coach and general manager. Who does the head coach report to? Again, that was one of the stipulations that held up the Giants and John Harbaugh signing that contract because he wanted it in writing on who he was going to report to. He wanted to report directly to the team owner, not the general manager. That's what he was doing when he was in Baltimore. That language finished. Now it is in contract, and now they are able to move forward up there with the Giants. That power struggle is ultimately going to play a factor in this decision because now you don't have that experienced coach with Mike Tomlin when Omar now inherits the job from Kevin Colbert. Of course, we knew what the power structure looked like because he was here the longest. Now, as you reset it, now will that head coach report directly to Omar? And again, that's where I think the power struggle happens. But if you have a new coach, guess what? You don't have that conversation. Now that coach is going to report directly to the general manager. So I think all of that plays, but ultimately resetting that coach's salary if you go with somebody who did not have head coaching experience based off what I've seen, and this is my 24th year around this Steelers organization, I think it leads to someone who does not have coaching experience, and then that power struggle resets itself.
I'm glad you brought that up about the whole power structure thing. How will a coach, you got to look at it from the other side. How attractive will the Steelers job look to a young up and coming coach? Not a retread like a Mike McCarthy or Brian Flores or Raheem Morris or Vance Joseph, all who had prior head coaching jobs. And for one reason or the other, it did not work out. How attractive is this Steelers job? I thought it was interesting. There's been 10 openings total. Now, Buffalo just came open earlier today. On Monday, and that was a surprise. And so at its height, there's been 10 open jobs. Now, Atlanta and New York both got filled before this Buffalo job came open. So at any given time, there's been 8 or 9 jobs open. Right now, currently, there are 8 current jobs open. I thought it was interesting that the first 2 hires were AFC North coaches. John Harbaugh took the Giants job, and Stefanski took the Atlanta Falcons job. Interesting enough, those were 2 jobs that were probably from a talent perspective on the offensive side of the ball, the most attractive when you look at what New York has and when you look at what Atlanta has on the offensive side of the ball. But when you look at what's left, the 8 remaining jobs left, where do you put the Steelers as far as attractiveness for a young up and coming offensive coordinator? Is there enough with the Steelers with the cap situation? I believe We're in the top 10 as far as cap space is concerned going into this season with the 13 draft picks that we have, with, I believe, a yet very young offensive line, but promising offensive line, two weapons at running back, a number one wide receiver, and what they've invested on the defensive line. Do you think this job is one of the more attractive jobs available when you also consider how long the Rooneys keep their coaches?
Yeah, I think when you look at it from an attractive standpoint, yes, because of the relationship that the Rooneys have, and obviously their relationship with the head coach, making sure that he's going to be here for the length of time, your 10 plus years. So I think it's attractive from that. But what's not attractive is what you're inheriting.
Okay.
This is vastly different than Mike Tomlin inheriting his team in 2007. You didn't
Hmm.
have a young defense that you knew that was capable of balling, that just needed just a little nudge to get over the hump. But ultimately, you're not inheriting a franchise quarterback, a Super Bowl winning quarterback like Mike Tomlin did with Ben Roethlisberger in 2007. That's not happening. Right now, those are challenges that you have, and you're following ultimately Mike Tomlin in 19 consecutive seasons. I know people harp on that all the time, but you're following a guy like that. And what happens if, for whatever reason, they struggle to get out the gate? This fan base is upset, and it reverts them back to 2003. And I was on that team that went 6-10, so that was a challenge during that season. But now you look fast forward all of these years later, that's not attractive. It's not the attractive job that Mike Tomlin inherited in 2007. So all of these are concerns are going to be something that you have to talk about throughout this process. And ultimately, I highly doubt that you're going to draft a young quarterback. And let's just assume that they're drafting a quarterback at the top of the draft or trading up and making moves. The chances of your rookie quarterback running off 14 straight in the manner that Ben Roethlisberger did probably is slim to none.
Hmm.
So this is going to be a whole learning process for Steelers Nation because we haven't been in this situation in a long time. So it's just very difficult. But again, these conversations, and that's why I say they have to get it right in this particular hire because there's a lot of holes that are on this roster that this new coach is going to inherit.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about those holes. There's quite a few things that whoever comes on board is going to have to take care of right away if he's going to appease this fan base. And this fan base needs to be honest with themselves on what issues we truly have. We all know we don't have a quarterback. We all know we haven't had a number two wide receiver. We've had that for a while now. But the expectation that Tomlin had is it doesn't matter. You still want to go to the playoffs every single year. You still are expected to win the AFC North every year. I wonder if this fan base is going to have the type of patience that is required for a young coach who does not have those pieces in place. Uh, are they going to have the patience with this guy, or are they going to be screaming bloody murder after 6 or 7 weeks? Because we're both part of this fan base now. We're on the other side of things now after being on the inside for so many years, Chuck. And I'll admit, I am spoiled. Shoot, I was spoiled when I played, and I'm been spoiled afterwards. I went to 3 Super Bowls in 6 years, Charlie. Coming from Northwestern, my best season being 6-7. Yeah, I got real spoiled real fast, and that is the expectations when you play for a franchise like Pittsburgh. Coach whoever comes in as a new coach will have to understand that. And it takes a lot to really grasp the mentality and the culture of Pittsburgh. It's not just, you can't quite get it from the outside looking in. You have to be in it. And then you really got to hear the noise of Steeler Nation because it gets real loud when things aren't going the way that we want them to go.
It does, and that's why, when I touched upon what Steelers Nation is and how they became arrogant because these are the expectations that we had as you were kind of leading up to, the final Super Bowl in 2010, and ultimately when you didn't get there. And this is one of the things that I always remind the players, and I tell them, listen, this is not an organization who celebrates division winners. They
Mhm.
don't celebrate Super Bowl losers. So if you don't win it, they don't bring you back. They don't even acknowledge the fact of your accomplishments that you did and how hard it was to get there. And if that was the case, we would hear about the 1995 team and you would hear about the 2010. We were on the 2010 team. They didn't bring us back to be celebrating. Thank you for getting to the Super Bowl. If you don't win it and you don't hoist that Lombardi trophy, that season's all for naught. And I've been speaking on it because those are facts. I'm not trying to throw shade. It's just a reminder to these players to say the ultimate goal in Pittsburgh and will always be in Pittsburgh is to win this Super Bowl. And if you don't do it, it's all for naught. That's why they always celebrate those 6 teams. And when you walk around the facilities, there's not even that big picture that you get when you take the Super Bowl picture. You get one of those smaller pictures that are on the wall. You don't get acknowledged, and that's going to continue to happen. And just like when you heard Art Rooney when he talked about it in his press conference, he said, "Why would you waste a year of your life not trying to win?"
There we go.
So that lets you know he's not thinking about rebuilding mode. He doesn't even want to talk about rebuilding because his expectations are to try to win it every single year.
And as a player, would you want your coach or your owner to have any less of an expectation? I know I wouldn't. I feel like that brings out the best in you as a player when you're held up to a certain standard. Obviously, we fell short for a while now, and we need to get it back. And whoever we bring in as a coach has to understand that that is the path we're on, not a rebuilding path, right? Even though it may look like rebuilding to some, it's not the mentality that you have when you come into this building. But there are some real issues that need to be addressed with this team moving forward, and we'll discuss those on the other side of this break. That segment was also brought to you by Smart Choice Bass. It's the perfect time to remodel your bathroom. Right now, Smart Choice Bass is giving you $1,250 off your bathroom projects, plus a free luxury upgrade to add comfort and style. And just for Big Play listeners, you'll save an additional 10% on your project. So don't wait. Visit them at smartchoicebass.com or give them a call at 844-GET-SMART to schedule your free consultation today. Smart Choice Bass, where luxury meets affordability. We got some issues in Pittsburgh, man. That we've been putting putty on, duct tape. We've been stringing stuff together, keeping the boat afloat just long enough to get into the playoffs every single year. But now they're going to rear their ugly head. We don't have Coach Tomlin to guide us through this. He doesn't have, the players won't have that supreme motivator to get the absolute most out of the talent on this team. Some legit issues need to be addressed as soon as that man, whoever is announced as the 4th Steelers head coach since 1969, when he walks in that building, there are some things that need to be addressed immediately. And the first things is quite obvious. We both know it. And I'm about to go through my keys. I got 4 right now, Charlie. We got plenty more to talk about, and we'll talk about them throughout this offseason. But the 4 right now that stand out clear to me, number 1, we got to develop a plan at the quarterback position. Doesn't mean we have to select one in this draft. It doesn't mean we are like pulling our draft picks to select one in the 2027 draft, who everybody thinks is the next Arch Manning draft. Who else comes out that year? Dante Moore comes out that year. A plethora of other folks are coming out in the 2027 draft. This is marked as a weaker quarterback draft, but whatever that plan is, it needs to be addressed. Whether it's going after Mac Jones in San Francisco, who had a good year as a backup, and maybe trading for him because he has 1 year left. Malik Willis, who showed some flashes in Green Bay. Whatever it is, it needs to be a plan, and they need to stick to it. And they can't just go by with these stopgap quarterbacks anymore, despite their resume, despite Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, Mitch Trubisky, all these guys who came in. We need a plan that is going to span the next 5 to 7 years at the quarterback position for Pittsburgh. And number 2, the guy needs another person to throw it to, right? He's going to have DK Metcalf to throw it to. That's a good number 1 option. He had his struggles this year, but I think that's a good place to start if you're going to start your wide receiver room with that guy. But he needs a partner in crime. He needs a Robin to his Batman, or he needs somebody that could be number 1 when he's not having a number 1 type of day. We haven't been able to identify one of those. We don't know what's happening with Roman Wilson. Calvin Austin's a free agent this year. Adam Thielen is going into retirement. You can't think that MVS is going to stick around for another year. They need to develop or find a number 2. We traded George Pickens away. We had him in the building last year, and we traded him away for things other than football. And we haven't been able to replace him since. So that is an issue that whoever comes in needs to address right away. Number 3, this is something I think needs to happen. We got to keep Pat Meyer. What he was able to do with this O-line, the strides they were able to make when this was the most unproven unit going into the year and end up being our best, most consistent unit by the end of the year, you got to keep the same voice in a young offensive line's ear. For so many years before this, there was a rotating door at the offensive line coaching position. Sean Surratt, Adrian Clem. This was after Mike Munchak retired. And we have not had this type of production from the O-line in years. And now this is Pat Meyer's third year, I believe, with Pittsburgh, or at least going into his third year. And he has these boys going in the right direction. And so usually guys come in, they have their own guys, they have their own offense coordinator, and they usually have their own O-line coach that they'd like to work with. But they're going to have to take a really hard look and take at what their game plan usually is. And when you come into a new team, the one thing that you want and you don't want to have a question about is who your offensive line coach is and the status of your O-line. If you feel confident in where they are and you saw their progress last year, you can't look at Pat Meyer and be like, we need to go in a different direction, because he has proven himself this year that he can get these guys going, and they have formed a chemistry, and you do not want to break that up. Last but not least, we got to tighten up the middle of that defense, man. We can't be so soft up the middle. We need some run stuffers at linebacker between Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson and Cole Holcomb and who's my other guy? Malik Harrison. We did not do well at stopping the run from the linebacker position. And then at the safety position, too many things got over the top of us, especially in the fourth quarter of games. And so we need to tighten that up. We need our captain in the middle to be the guy to come in and make plays in the backfield. We need him to be a difference maker. He can't just be a body in there waiting for the D lineman to take up all the blocks so he can make a clean tackle. We need somebody that's an enforcer in both the middle linebacker and the safety position. Got to address that right away, and I think we'll be better for it. But these are real issues, not the only ones. There's more, but these are some issues that I think the coach, whoever the new coach is, needs to address on day one.
No, I'm with you on it. I agree with you what you said there, and obviously my keys are similar, but there's quite one or two that are off. But ultimately, what system are you going to run? So you're bringing that in there, identifying, okay, what are you inheriting? And right now on this roster, as we speak, Aaron Rodgers will be a free agent. You have Mason Rudolph, and obviously you have Will Howard and Skylar Thompson that will be on this roster as well. But I think ultimately, does the system that you're looking to run identify with the quarterback that you have on your roster currently now? That's going to be the question that ultimately has to answer, because the moment that you're hired, you now want to get working with your quarterback that he understands your system. So we need to figure out what that looks like right now. All indication looks like Aaron Rodgers potentially may not be back, even though there were reports over the weekend that said, hey, we are interested in Aaron. Yeah, of course, because the free agent pool that's out there right now isn't as attractive. The quarterback class that you thought coming into it while you were compiling picks is not as strong as at the end of the season as it was at the beginning of the season. So there still are questions that way. And when you look at ultimately what happened since Ben Roethlisberger retired, 7 quarterbacks have thrown a pass for this Steelers organization. 6 of them has started for this team. So they are looking for leadership at that quarterback position. But again, all of these questions happen when you miss on your first round draft pick in the manner that the Steelers did in 2022 with Kenny Pickett. When you miss, now this is supposed to be a year where these guys are picking up his 5th-year option, and that hasn't happened because you missed on that pick. So now what does that look like? So that's going to be the number one thing that any coach coming in here has to identify who their quarterback is moving forward. Number 2, again, to your point, finding a wide receiver. You only typically right now you have DK that is on a roster. They have a huge decision as it relates to Calvin Austin on whether to bring him back. What does that number look like before you get to free agency in March? But again, ultimately it's going to determine what the system is and whether Calvin Austin fits in this system. A lot of questions for Roman Wilson. Maybe the new coach would come in with a new system and get that fire lit underneath him and get him out of the doghouse that he was in, that people claim that he was not in when he was a healthy stretch at the end of the season. So again, you're going to have to find somebody to pair DK with. My next point, got to find out who's in the secondary. And as much as I love Jalen Ramsey, this guy's as talented as can be, but he wasn't the plan when the season started. They brought Juan Thornhill in here to now be one of those safeties. You brought Chuck Clark in here. That tandem didn't work. Then all of a sudden, you're now bringing on a Jabril Peppers at the beginning of September. That didn't materialize. You traded for Kyle Duggar. Again, he was a healthy bench because he did not start that Texans game. Chuck Clark started the Texans game. So again, you have questions there. But again, with the new coach and a potential new defensive coordinator, maybe they fall back into good graces with whoever that defensive minded coach is on as a coordinator for this team. So you're going to have to answer those questions, and hopefully Jalen Ramsey can get back to doing some of the things that you hope that he was able to bring to this team from a corner perspective and a slot corner perspective. And right now, we don't know what that question is as it relates to the secondary. So they have to clean that up and identify what the back end looks like for this team. And the last point that I have, you got to pick up which free agents are you going to pick up? Which fifth year option are you going to bring up? Are you going to now give the fifth year option to Broderick Jones? Who knows? Because I'm sure in your trench report that's coming up here, you will let us know what those linemen look like from a grading perspective throughout the entire season. That's one you have to identify there. Your free agents. Again, I mentioned Calvin Austin that's walking out of that door. But again, what are you going to do with Kenneth Gainwell? He is your team MVP. He struck. When you talk about strike while the iron is hot, he struck because you hit free agency when you're hot, and ultimately won a Super Bowl a year ago with the Eagles, team MVP this year. And you better believe that he's looking to maximize out on that contract. But again, when you have your starter and the way that the Steelers have committed to Jaylen Warren, we know he's productive. But if you're Kenneth Gainwell, you're going to want a higher salary than Jaylen Warren at this particular point. And the Steelers are probably going to say, well, Jalen's our starter. You can't make more than the starter at that position as a backup. But if you truly identify him as 1 and 1A, that's going to be something that the coach has to address if you think that Kenneth Gainwell can fit into this system. He enjoys being here, but again, it has to be a working relationship. And obviously, money is going to determine whether Kenneth Gainwell is back. Those are just some of the questions that I have heading into this offseason. But right now, they don't know who the coach is going to be. All-star games are happening right now from a talent evaluation standpoint as you're evaluating these players, but you don't know they fit in your system. So this is what makes it difficult for the scouts to now have to go out and then ultimately figuring out how they're going to attack the scouting combine essentially in 5 weeks that you have to prepare for. So there's a lot of work that has to happen from a roster, the way that you're conducting your roster right now. And these are a lot of questions, but these are some of the 4 that I highlight that the coach, whoever they hire coming in here, has to answer those questions to figure out who the nucleus of this team is going to be.
Well, one question I think will give whoever the new coach is a little bit more ease when he has to think about answering it is the state of the offensive line. We have the year-end trench report coming up, CB, and I think whoever comes into this building is going to be happy with what he inherits on this O-line. There's one thing I think, or one position group I think he doesn't really have to worry about as much as the others.
The Big Play Sports Network is brought to you by Garage Beer. No bitterness, no frills, no IPA, just beer-flavored beer. Find local retailers who sell garage beer near you by visiting drinkgaragebeer.com.
The year-end trench report is here, CB. And when I started this thing, when we started this podcast, and specifically this segment, we didn't know what it was going to look like. I thought it was important that we highlight this position group specifically because they had so many young players who had to contribute last year and got their feet wet. And we had so many players, well, the 2 tackles specifically, we didn't know what they were going to look like coming into this year. We didn't know Trai was still an unknown commodity, being a first-round pick last year, and Broderick playing left tackle for the first time in his career after playing right tackle the last 2 years, even though it was left tackle was a position that we drafted him to play initially. He was supposed to be David. What's David's last name? Went to the Titans. Moore.
Dan Moore
Jr., who got big bucks to go to the Tennessee Titans. Broderick was his heir apparent, and it just didn't work out initially that way. until he got signed by Tennessee. And so we didn't know a lot. Unknown commodity going into this year, but I can stand here today, CB, and smile because this O-line made me proud, made you proud, I'm sure, after being here each and every week, listening to my trench report, listening to me rant and rave about this O-line. You've been patient, man. You've been sitting there listening to me talk all this talk. But let's get to the grades. Once again, the standard was 85% on an individual basis. And I will say this, that 80%, even though Broderick came below the line, it started out a lot worse and he improved to an 80%. And so before he had his neck injury, he was on the upswing. He had played probably 2 or 3 of the best games he had put on film up to that point. And unfortunately, he had played so bad to start the year that is where his grade is now. But as you look at him and what his body of work consisted, he was on the upswing. Now, your last point that you made when you talked about your offseason keys was 5th-year options. Broderick is going into his 4th year, which makes him qualify to get extended. The Steelers can pick up his 5th-year option if they so choose. I don't think they're going to do it. Not necessarily from the way that he ended, but the guy that replaced him, and we'll get to him later on, played well enough where they don't feel like they will need to invest that much into a 5th-year option, but it means that he will get an opportunity this offseason to compete for the left tackle job. So it's not his yet, but if he keeps on improving like he did before, then it's going to be interesting how that left tackle position looks for the Steelers in 2026. Next up, Andres Pete. He came in as a vet. We did not know how much he had left in the tank. He did not have a good showing when he went to, I think, the Raiders after his tenure with the Saints. And so whenever you have a guy who comes to you via injury and he's a veteran and he was on the streets beforehand, it does give you a little pause. He came in, and I think more than anything, he helped mentor a lot of young guys. I saw hand usage improve a lot amongst everybody. And the only person I knew who consistently threw his hands, and I told you this, I love the way Andres Pete throws his hands. If anything, his feet may be all over the place, but he will punch the hell out of you when given the opportunity, and he definitely did that. And I thought that was his biggest thing, having that veteran presence back there, former all-pro guard for the Saints. So he's played at the high level. He knows what it looks like. I think that was invaluable for this team, and I think that was his biggest contribution. Spencer Anderson, man, he's in the trench report, but he was a tight end this year, Charlie. That was his role. He played more tight end snaps. Probably, I would love to see his split between him and Pat Freiermuth, which I know Steeler Nation is all kinds of upset, and I am too, with the way that Pat Freiermuth was used this year. But Spencer Anderson played more snaps at tight end and H-back and fullback than he did at guard. But when given the opportunity, he played well. Not great. He had a lot on his plate. And even in the games where he had to play a whole game of guard, or at least he started at guard, he was still playing tight end. Some of the most unorthodox usage of a lineman happened this year, and Spencer Anderson had to learn on the fly. But because he did it so well, he became an invaluable part of this offense. He became the jumbo tight end for this team, and that was a big part of this offense, and Arthur Smith used him because he did it so well. Even caught a big man pass this year, CB, and so that's good to see. I'm glad Spencer Anderson got usage because I thought he had one heck of a preseason, and so that 82% doesn't quite capture his value to the team, but I thought by and large he had a very successful year. Troy Fautanu, we were questioning what he was going to look like after coming off a season-ending injury last year, playing right tackle after playing left tackle for most of his tenure at Washington, how he would adjust. And I tell you, CB, he is going to be an all-pro player for us. He is that good. He has all the tools. He has the right disposition, and you can tell it matters to him. He wants to be great. Now, I know he's going to be hungry this offseason because Houston had his way. Will Anderson, Daniil Hunter, probably the best combo of pass rushers this year. They had their way, and especially in that fourth quarter in this wild card playoff game. And I know that left a bad taste in Troy's mouth, but I have no doubt he's going to get back in the lab and fix what he did that was ailing him in that game. But when you look at his tape from the whole year, from the beginning to where he is now, improved dramatically. Hand usage was fantastic. He is super quick, super strong, has all the tools. More than anything else, it looks like it matters to him, and he wants to be great. And I think that he will get there. Mason McCormick, my spirit animal. My man plays with so much passion, so much energy, out there doing all the hand gestures, getting his team hype. He had a really good year. Not much was expected of Mason coming in the 4th round, I believe, out of South Dakota State or North Dakota, one of those schools where all the mountains are in the middle of the country. He went to one of those, and he did it big this year. In his second year, coming in due to an injury to James Daniels last year, not a lot was known on if he would have enough coming from a small school to play big-time football, and he's done it, and he's one of the leaders moving forward. Our right side is solidified for the next 8 to 10 years. And no O-line is good without their center. Zach Frazier, one of the things that I give him the most credit for is he gets everybody on the same page. One of the things that I was most impressed with, hardly any pre-snap penalties, very few holding calls this year. But more than anything, no pre-snap penalties, almost hardly any. We had a few. And hardly any mental errors. Every now and again, somebody will go and block the wrong person, but by and large, everybody was on the same page. And you do not have that unless you have a leader and a stalwart at the center position like Zach Frazier is. So kudos to him. He is going to be our guy. No O-line for the Pittsburgh Steelers. No offense for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's going to be good unless we have the man in the middle, and we have that in Zach Frazier. So new coach can feel happy about that. We got our center for the next 10 to 15 years. Isaac Seumalo, our veteran leader, probably had the best year out of everybody this year. He had to deal with the injuries all year long. Did not practice the entire preseason. Did not play anyway. He did practice some. Found a way to still put good tape out there. He is a free agent this year, but I think he is an absolute linchpin of this offense. Steelers need to really look at bringing him back because I thought he played really good ball this year. He is not that old in guard years. I believe he turns 32 this year. So he has about a good 3 or 4 years, and he will come at a relatively inexpensive price for a guard of his caliber. So I think he should be a priority because, like I said, if you can keep this same O-line intact for another year, the sky's the limit, and you definitely want that for whatever quarterback is behind that O-line this year, that consistency and continuity with the O-line, and it starts with Isaac Seumalo because not only did he do his job great, he helped Dylan Cook, who I'm talking about here next, to be as good as he was at the later part of this season. Now, Dylan Cook was a surprise, absolute surprise coming into this year. Nobody knew about him. Everybody thought Calvin Anderson would come in when Broderick went down, or if Calvin couldn't do it, then Andres Pete would. No, Dylan Cook was working behind the scenes to perfect his craft. And when he came in, Charlie, that's the best the left tackle position has looked in years. Even, I would dare to say, when Dan Moore Jr. was playing. Dylan Cook solidified that left tackle position. He gave up minimal pressure. He went against some really good pass rushers down the stretch, too. Not like we were going against some slouches. He had to go against Myles Garrett. He got help. Don't get me wrong. He had to go against Myles Garrett. He had to go against the D-line from Baltimore. He had to go against Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson against Houston, and he held up well for a guy who got his first career start this year versus Baltimore. Just look at where he came from for those 6-7 games that he started, including the playoff game. We found a gem. Former quarterback. He understands things a little differently than I think most linemen do. I thought he's done really well this year, and he will compete for the starting left tackle job for the Steelers next year because we can't hide him on practice squad anymore. The league knows the tape is out there, and so I expect him and Broderick to make each other better, and it's yet to be seen who will win that job. But I think Dylan Cook has pole position because the way that he ended this year has to give the coaches, whoever that coach comes in and sees that film, has to give him confidence that his left tackle position is solidified if one of those two wins the job. And last but not least, the guy responsible for getting all these guys on the same page, Pat Meyer. This O-line as a whole graded out as an 87, so that's right in the B range, not quite an A-. But I'm going to give Pat Meyer himself an A+. grade on this. He doesn't even get a number. He gets just a solid A because of what he had to endure. All the noise. I was one of his biggest detractors, but the noise was loud about this O-line. Are they going to be proven? Are we going to see the type of improvement that we needed to see from them because we hadn't seen it in Broderick for 3 years? We were wondering, can he get what he needs to get out of Zach Frazier? Can he get what he needs to get out of Mason McCormick? How is Dylan Cook going to look after being on practice squad when he came in? And all of those came back with the resounding yes. Pat Meyer can get the job done. He can get these guys to go improve. He did a great job this year, and it's why it's one of my points for this offseason that whoever comes in needs to keep him and keep that same consistent voice in this young offensive line's ear.
There's not much to disagree with. And I think ultimately the major question coming into this was the offensive line. And at the end of the season, as we finish, it wasn't as bad. They got better each and every week. I learned a lot in that trench report, and I'm sure our audience has learned a lot as it relates to just things to look for from a grading perspective. Man, appreciate you all the way through, man, and educating everybody throughout this season, because obviously as experienced as I am at the in this league, I learned a lot with that trench report, man. So keep it going.
Appreciate you, brother, man. It ain't for the faint of heart, man. Grading this film, man, because some of that film was ugly to start the year. But like you mentioned, it got better, got easier to grade, and it was fun, man. Watching these kids improve. I say kids because I'm 43 years old and they 20-something. I'm not that dang on old, but they still feel like kids to me. Hey, you better calm it down over there, TB. You better calm it on down over there.
You getting old, man. Golly, man. Wow.
But it was fun watching them improve, and I think whoever comes in as a new head coach can breathe a little easier knowing he has a solid O-line to build on and behind, because obviously we got that quarterback position that needs to be addressed, and the offense can thrive with these guys playing the way they played and with Pat Meyer leading them. So we'll see. Now we need to get to the rest of these playoff games that happened over the weekend. I know you got some strays thrown at you, CB, so duck and dodge if you need to, but we're going to get to these at the end of this break. All right, finally got to watch some football without being totally invested in the outcome. Just watch it just for football's sake. We only got 4 games left if you count both the NFL and the college football championship. And then it's over. Football is over with. But we were privy to some really good football games this past weekend, starting with the Bills up in Denver. Man, Denver's been winning one-score games all year long, but you thought with Josh Allen at the helm that they would have did enough in the last minute, and they just fell short. Josh Allen, who is sometimes his own worst enemy with all those turnovers, but he always finds a way and manages a way to get his team back into the game. And unfortunately, it was marred by some refereeing choices at the end of the game. But you mentioned last week when we talked about the game, how would Bo Nix react in a playoff game? And he came through when his team needed him.
He did. And anytime that you're going up against a veteran quarterback, what is that young quarterback going to do in the moments, in those high pressure moments as you start to close into that fourth quarter? Bo Nix, he did a fantastic job of managing that game, making sure he didn't put his team behind the 8 ball. And it's so unfortunate to see the injury happen. And I know the emotions were flying after a game because you do everything and all the work that you put into it, and ultimately you are injured almost next to the last play. And it's just unfortunate that his season ended the way that it did, but he did a fantastic job of getting his team in preparation of this AFC Championship game. We'll just hope that now they can continue to move forward.
Yeah, all reports, it sounds like he broke something in his ankle or lower extremity, and Jarrett Stidham is standing. It will be the starter. The reports are saying that he will be the starter and stepping in. Charlie, I know you spent a good portion of your career as a backup. What kind of pressure now? It's the AFC Championship game, so it might be a silly question because we all know it's a lot of pressure, but this pressure is unique, but it's not unprecedented for a backup to come in and do well. Nick Foles comes to mind. What kind of pressure can you see Stidham dealing with, and do you think he's capable of dealing with it?
Yeah, you would think that he is, obviously, for him to continue to be in the league in the manner that he is. Now you
Mhm.
just have to really block out the noise because this is not a situation that you were expecting to be in, but yet you're thrust into this particular position. One of the things that I was able to do was lean on the experience that I played when I was a starter in Detroit and ultimately having to step into that role. That's not something that he ultimately is able to take advantage of only because this is his fifth start. And
Mhm.
now it's one thing to have a start in September at the beginning of the year and nobody really paying attention to that game. No, the season's on the line. If you don't
Mhm.
go out there and play well, this is your fault. And that's the part of a backup quarterback that people fail to realize. People always say it was a glamorous job. Well, that's until you have to play. And now when you're thrust into this moment, if he plays well, his career will extend. If he does not and stinks up the joint, they would say, see, that's why he's a backup, and chances are getting opportunities later in the years over the next few years will be slim. So this is a huge game for him, and Broncos Nation are depending on him. The one thing I did like to see, and I like to see on Twitter, was Nick Foles' response, and he said, "Listen, it was a guy very similar to what he was going through, and literally was able to step in and go out there and play well." And sometimes when you are the backup, especially this late in the season, you get off to a slow start and then you pick up the more that the game unfolds and you get that game speed. We don't know if he's going to fall into that category, but all he knows at this particular moment that there is no tomorrow. He has to go out there and play well. And then ultimately we'll be repeating this conversation because now the platform will be much larger than what he has right now with the whole world watching him if he can make it to the Super Bowl. So I'm rooting
Right.
for him.
Right. And they will have their work cut out for them. They got the number one team, well, number two seed in the AFC, and the New England Patriots. Mike Vrabel has come in and led that team to an improbable appearance in this game. This is after the Charlie Batch of the Houston Texans had his 4 turnovers in the first half, and Houston kind of stunk up the joint a little bit offensively. Even that defense. We felt that defense last week. They kept them in it as long as they could, but Vrabel, Drake May, who I think, if not for the year that Stafford had in LA, would be the MVP this year. They did enough to get over the hump and beat a very tough Houston team led by a very great coach in D'Amico Ryans. I know we kind of rooting against the Patriots. We don't want them to get number 7, right? But you got to give them credit where credit's due. Drake May and Vrabel are doing their thing in New England.
And this was a game, obviously, when we talked about it last week, I said this game would be determined by CJ Stroud. And when you
Mhm.
have those turnovers in the manner that he did against Pittsburgh, but you're able to now get out of the stadium with a victory, that was something that he could not do in this particular game. Ultimately, he did. And the biggest one that crushed them was that pick six, because anytime you turn the ball over, and those things happen, you just hope that your defense is able to go out there and defend every blade of grass. And unfortunately, that turnover was created without the defense being on the field. That was a big blow for them. And as New England is going through and on this run, one thing I always talk about, you always have to have a little bit of luck on your side. Getting
Mhm.
healthy and ultimately hoping that injuries does not impact your team. In the way that they are moving forward, they are playing solid defensively. Even though it was raining, Houston had to play in that game as well. So it was raining. They were able to put on that performance. And now here you are going on the road in the AFC Championship game playing against a backup quarterback. That is the part of the luck. Now they have to handle their business. But again, that's part of it moving forward. And regardless of what the narrative is, you only can beat the people on your team, on your schedule. And that's ultimately what New England is doing. But Mike Vrabel, he is doing one heck of a job. And ultimately, when you're looking at it and say, did owner Bob Kraft get it right? He sure did. He let the coach and identified his man, a New England guy, with Mike Vrabel, bringing him back into the fold, bringing him back into the family, and ultimately is paying off in dividends because in his first season, here he is in the AFC Championship game.
I wonder how many people know that Mike Vrabel was actually drafted by the Pittsburgh Steelers. Did you know that too, CB?
Yeah, I knew
He-
that because
he-
obviously we're growing up as Steeler fans, but he couldn't see the field while he was here.
yeah.
And ultimately, he ended up going up to New England, and you saw the way that his career unfolded. But again, that's that true determination story that, hey, man, I'm not going to let my circumstances identify and impact who I am as a player. He moved on, and now he is a legend up there in New England.
Yes, he is. Moving over to the NFC. We saw a great game last night with the Chicago Bears and the LA Rams. Rams, with probably the current MVP and Matthew Stafford, they looked like they were on the ropes there for a while there, and they had the lead. And then some Caleb Williams magic happened once again. CB, that throw on 4th and 17, going backwards and finding a way to throw that into the back, that was incredible. Now, Caleb gives you much oh no moments as he gives you wow moments, but that was one of the most incredible throws I've ever seen by a quarterback in that type of moment. He has all the arm talent in the world. Unfortunately, it was not enough. Ended up throwing a pick in overtime that ended up costing them the game. But ultimately, I think the Bears show that they're going to be here to stay for a while. Ben Johnson has that group going. Obviously, Sean McVay and all the success he's had with LA, he's found another team. What he's been able to do in resurrecting Stafford's career since leaving Detroit, they're on the verge. You got to think with them going against a division, the opponent in Seattle, they have as good a chance as anybody to make it to the Super Bowl once again under McVay's leadership. But that was a heck of a game.
It was. And when you talk about a high pressure throw, Caleb Williams was able to deliver in that moment at the end of the game. And it's one thing to throw the ball up and you make some lucky catch as your guys jumping up and high pointing the football. That didn't happen here. He bought himself time just trying to get those defenders to slow down just a little bit to allow him to now deliver that football. And it was as accurate as can be. So it wasn't like it was luck. You can't say that because he ultimately was able to deliver, but he was doing that all season. The thing that's going to haunt him is the fact of his last pass in this season was an interception. And that is the frustrating part that when you look at just the way that the game unfolded, that was a tough one for him. So you hope that that adds fuel to the fire as he's preparing for the 2026 season. But if you are a Bears fan, you should be excited about watching Caleb Williams here this not only next season, but in the near future, because this guy is as talented as can be. And now, when 1 year under his belt, getting an opportunity to now evaluate all of his fit throws that he had this season, he's going to get better as he looks to go from year two to year three. And I'm excited to watch him. But on the other side, Matthew Stafford, that's a guy I believe in. And this guy gets it done. He is going to be the MVP of this year because he is playing lights out and has his team now on the verge of another Super Bowl as that trade happened a few years ago between Detroit and the Rams. And it looks like Sean McVay, as he went out on the limb and say, this is our guy, it has proven to be right, especially at Matthew Stafford's age, to now have the Super Bowl. I mean, not Super Bowl MVP, but MVP, and hoping that he gets a chance to now go out there and get them to another Super Bowl. And maybe that's another Super Bowl MVP is going to happen. But I think ultimately this is exciting to watch. And I'm a huge fan of Matthew Stafford. Even though it's not going to get any easier, this kind of reminds me of kind of Pittsburgh and Baltimore when you knew you had to go through one. You just hope that that game is at home. Seattle did their part having this game now at home. And this is going to be a game. And I think it's going to be one for the ages because both of these teams know each other very well.
Yeah, yeah. Moving on to that game, they just had a crazy Thursday night game a few weeks ago that went into, if it didn't go to overtime, it went to the last possession of regulation. But that game was insane. So we're expecting something like that in the barn burner. Seattle absolutely dismantled a very injury prone 49ers team. Seattle looks like the best team going right now. The way that defense is playing, the way they didn't really need Darnold to do much of anything. Now they did lose Zach Cabernet, who is their best player or one of their better offensive players in the backfield. Obviously, they got Kenneth Walker too to run the ball, but Cabernet was a big part of that offense, so they got to deal with that next week. But Rams at Seattle, going to be a tough one. And so on the other side of this break, CB, we got one more opportunity for this season. Well, two more because we'll have you do the Super Bowl too. But we're going to have you pick the conference champions at the end of this break. Let's see what you got. Big Play Bets are brought to you by FanDuel. You know how fast NFL game days move. One big play and everything changes. That's why live betting on FanDuel is a game changer. With FanDuel, you can bet in real time while the game unfolds. Score just flipped, jump on a new spread or live money line. That wide receiver is heating up, bet the next touchdown score or total yards. Think that drive stalls in the red zone? Take a live field goal prop or fade the total. Live player props, team totals, drive results, updated spreads, next play markets, it's all there. It's fast, it's fun, and with FanDuel, your live bets move as quickly as the game does. So whether you're riding momentum or fading the hype, FanDuel puts you right in the middle of every moment. Visit FanDuel.com/bigplay to download the app and bet the NFL live all season long. Disclaimer, must be 21 plus and present in select states. For Kansas, in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino, or 18 plus and present in DC, Kentucky, or Wyoming. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit rg/help.com. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts, or call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. All right, CB, conference championships are coming up this weekend. We have the Patriots at the Broncos. Broncos are underdogs at home. Obviously, Bo Nix being injured is a big part of that. Patriots are favored by 5.5 points. So I'm gonna have you do two different things. Give me who you think will win this game and if they will cover, and also who you think, or if you think the over and under will be met. So the Patriots are favored by 5.5. Do they cover?
I think both. I think the Patriots win, and I think they cover. I just don't know if, that the injuries that Denver has occurred. I don't know if they get it done, and I think this might be a blowout, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it is concerning. The over and under for that game is at 40.5. What say you?
I think it's going to be over. I do. I think New England's going to score their fair share of points, and I think there's going to be a couple turnovers that give New England short field, and they're able to capitalize off of it. So I think they cover.
Okay, moving on to the NFC. We have the Seahawks at home, favored by 2.5 over their division rival, the LA Rams. What say you?
This is going to be a tough one. This is going to be the better game of the two. And I think because these teams know each other very well, I think that crowd of Seattle will be impact, because that's a loud stadium to play in front of those crowd. And I think that's going to be something that I just don't know if the Rams are going to get heavy enough to get past that crowd on the road. I think for whatever reason, I think Seattle shocks the Rams.
All right. And the over under for that game is at 47.5. That's a pretty high number for a conference championship. What say you?
Yeah, I think they're going to cover it. Both teams can score. So I think this is going to be a higher scoring game than maybe a lot of people anticipate. But I think this is going to be one of those ones to where whoever has the ball last will win this game.
All right. So you predicting a rematch. It's going to look completely different from the Super Bowl that happened in 2015. The famous Marshawn Lynch didn't get the ball on the 1-yard line. Russell Wilson throws an interception to Malcolm Butler. You got the Patriots and the Seahawks. And it's being played in San Francisco this year, right?
Yes, it is. Yep.
In San Francisco for the Super Bowl. Okay. All right. I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna take the same picks you pick, because I know better than to go against my quarterback. So I got the Patriots and the Seahawks in the Super Bowl as well, CB. All right, brother.
Yep.
Another episode in the books, man. We got through a lot. It's a whole different era for Steelers football. Next week, we're gonna break down the team a little bit more. I think we'll assign grades by position group and see where we really need to attack from an intimate level when this new coach gets in. But happy week to you, CB, and I will see you next week, brother. Here we go.
Here we go.